Every parent knows the weight of empty pockets when their child needs something you can't afford. Tom Henderson felt that weight every day, working double shifts at Murphy's garage just to keep the lights on. When the flatbed arrived, carrying a 1967 Shelby GT500, a car worth more than he'd make in 10 years, Tom saw just another rich person's toy. But as his oil-stained hands traced the engine's problems, something stirred in him. This wasn't just any car. It was someone's broken dream. Through the night he worked, each turn of the wrench bringing the sleeping beast back to life. By dawn, the Mustang purred like it had just rolled off the assembly line. But why would a billionaire heiress propose marriage to a mechanic she'd never met? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Tom heard the soft purr of an approaching engine. Not the thunderous roar of a luxury sports car or the whisper-quiet hum of a limousine, just the modest sound of a rental sedan pulling into Murphy's garage. He'd been expecting someone eventually, maybe a driver or an assistant sent to collect the Shelby. What he hadn't expected was her. Victoria Sterling stepped out of the Toyota Camry like she was stepping off a yacht, all fluid grace despite the ordinary vehicle. She wore simple jeans and a white button-down shirt, but something about the way she carried herself whispered money louder than any designer label could shout. Her auburn hair caught the early light as she walked straight toward the Mustang, not even glancing at Tom. "May I?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of reverence as she gestured toward the driver's door. Tom nodded, wiping his hands on a shop rag out of habit. "She's all yours, Mom. Everything's been sorted, carburetor rebuild, new fuel pump, timing chain adjusted. She'll run like she did in '67, Victoria finished, sliding behind the wheel with practiced ease. The engine roared to life at her touch, settling into a perfect idle that made Tom's chest swell with pride. She listened with her eyes closed, head tilted slightly, as if the engine was whispering secrets only she could hear. For 10 minutes, she examined every detail. Not the casual inspection of a satisfied customer, but the methodical review of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. She checked the gaps between body panels, ran her fingers along the restored chrome, even got down on her knees. To peer underneath the chassis, "You replaced the exhaust hangers," she observed. Not a question, but a statement of approval. "They were rusted through. Figured while I was under there. And you used the original Ford part numbers." She stood, brushing dust from her knees. Most mechanics would have used generic replacements. Cheaper, easier. Tom shrugged. Didn't seem right. A car like this deserves respect. Victoria turned to face him fully for the first time. Her eyes were the color of aged whiskey, and they studied him with the same intensity she'd given the car. "You worked through the night." It wasn't a question, but Tom answered anyway. She needed it. "Sometimes you can't rush. Will you marry me?" The words hung in the air between them like a wrench dropped on concrete. Tom's brain simply refused to process them. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Somewhere in the back of the garage, the radio played a tinny country song about trucks and heartbreak. What? Victoria's expression didn't change. No smile, no blush, no indication that she'd just proposed marriage to a complete stranger. "I've been watching the security footage. All night. The way you talked to her, yes, I heard you talking to the car. The way you treated every bolt, every wire, like it mattered. Do you know how rare that is?" Tom's worn wedding ring suddenly felt heavy on his finger. He twisted it unconsciously, a habit from the 5 years since Sarah had passed. "Ma'am, I think maybe you're confused. I just fixed your car. That's my job." "No." Victoria stepped closer and Tom caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle and expensive that reminded him of rain on summer evenings. "Your job was to make it run. What you did was bring her back to life. There's a difference. Look, I appreciate the compliment, but I'm 34 years old, Victoria interrupted, her voice steady and matter-of-fact. I run a technology empire worth $2.3 billion. I've been married once to a man who saw dollar signs when he looked at me. I've dated men who collected me like I collect cars. And in all that time, I've never seen anyone treat an inanimate object with more genuine care than most people show their own children. Tom took a step back, bumping into his tool cart. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 8. I know. You know? Victoria reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. Not the cheap, flimsy kind Tom got from parts suppliers, but something thick and elegant with raised lettering. I know quite a bit about you, Tom Henderson. Single father. Wife died of cancer 5 years ago. You've worked at Murphy's for 7 years, never missed a day except when Emma was sick. You drive a 15-year-old Honda that you maintain meticulously. You're 3 months behind on your rent, but still bought Emma new school shoes last week. A cold feeling settled in Tom's stomach. You had me investigated? I investigate all potential investments. She placed the card on the workbench beside him. The offer stands. I know what I want, Mr. Henderson. I want someone who treats precious things like they're precious. Someone who stays up all night to make something broken whole again. Someone who talks to machines like they have souls. This is insane, is it? Victoria walked back to her rental car, pausing at the door. You know what's insane? Having everything and feeling nothing. Owning a dozen cars my father would have killed to touch and not knowing how to change my own oil. That's insane. She gestured toward the Shelby. Keep her for a week, drive her, get to know her. She was my father's dream car. He died before he could afford one. I bought her to feel close to him, but she's been broken for 2 years. 3 shops couldn't fix her. You did it in 1 night. Tom found his voice. That doesn't mean a week, Mr. Henderson. Drive her. Think about my offer. And ask yourself this. When was the last time someone saw you for exactly who you are and decided that was exactly what they wanted? She drove away in the rental Camry, leaving Tom standing in the garage with a business card in one hand and the keys to a $100,000 car in the other. The Shelby sat there, gleaming in the morning light, engine ticking as it cooled. Well, Tom said to the car, what the hell do I do now? The Mustang, predictably, didn't answer. Murphy's coffee nearly ended up on the floor when Tom told him about the proposal. The old man's hand froze halfway to his mouth, ceramic mug suspended in disbelief. She said, what now? Asked me to marry her. Tom slumped against the workbench, still holding Victoria Sterling's business card like it might explode. Right here, just asked. Murphy set his mug down carefully, as if sudden movements might shatter this bizarre new reality. The Victoria Sterling? The one who owns half the tech companies in Silicon Valley, apparently. And she proposed. To you. I know how it sounds. Murphy scratched his grey beard, leaving a small grease smudge on his chin. Son, in 40 years of running this shop, I've heard some wild tales. But this one takes the whole damn cake and the bakery with it. The bell above the door chimed, and Hank Peterson walked in with his usual Tuesday oil change appointment. Within 5 minutes, he'd overhead enough to piece together the story. By lunchtime, half the town knew that Tom Henderson had been proposed. To buy a billionaire. The small town of Millbrook had a population of 8,000 and a gossip network that could rival the internet for speed. Tom tried to focus on an alternator replacement, but every few minutes another familiar face would pop into the garage with some excuse. Just checking on my wiper fluid, said Mrs. Chen from the grocery store, her eyes darting between Tom and the Shelby. Thought I heard a funny noise, claimed Bob Martinez, whose truck hadn't made a funny noise in the 10 years Tom had been maintaining it. By the time Tom picked Emma up from school, even her 3rd-grade teacher was giving him curious looks. Dad, why is everyone acting weird? Emma asked, as they walked to his old Honda, her rainbow backpack bouncing with each step. She clutched a art project, a painted handprint turkey that was definitely more hand than turkey. Just one of those days, kiddo. But Emma was too smart for deflection. During the drive home, she peppered him with questions. Mackenzie said her mom said you met a princess. Is that true? Tom gripped the steering wheel tighter. Not a princess, Em. Just a lady who needed her car fixed. A rich lady. Yeah, she has a lot of money. Is she pretty? Tom thought about Victoria's whiskey-colored eyes, the way she'd moved around the Mustang with such reverence. I suppose she is. Are you going to marry her? The Honda swerved slightly. What? No! Where did you... Who told you that? Mackenzie's mom told Sophia's mom, who told Tommy's mom, who told Tommy, who told everyone at recess. Emma counted off the gossip chain on her small fingers. Tommy said you're going to be rich and buy me a pony. I'm not buying you a pony. But you are getting married? Tom pulled into their apartment complex parking lot, the building showing every one of its 40 years. Paint peeled from the railings, and the playground equipment had been temporarily removed 2 years ago. Remember when we talked about how sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean? Like when Uncle Jerry says he'll quit smoking? Exactly like that. The lady, she said something she didn't mean. That's all. But Emma wasn't satisfied. During dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it, their Tuesday tradition, she kept circling back to the topic. Maybe she did. Mean it? Emma said, twirling her fork thoughtfully. Maybe she thinks you're really nice. You are really nice, Dad. Thank you, sweetheart. And you're good at fixing things. That's my job. And you make the best grilled cheese sandwiches. Tom smiled despite himself. That's true. I am the grilled cheese champion. So maybe she wants to marry you for your grilled cheese. I don't think billionaires care about grilled cheese, Em. Then she's not very smart. After Emma went to bed, Tom sat at their small kitchen table with his laptop, the stack of bills pushed to one side. He'd never Googled someone before, felt strange doing it now, like he was peeking through their windows. Victoria Sterling's digital footprint was surprisingly small for someone of her wealth. A few articles about her company, VictorTech, a Forbes profile from 3 years ago. A charity gala photo where she stood alone in an elegant black dress, smiling the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. The biographical details were sparse. Stanford graduate, inherited her father's small software company and built it into an empire. Divorced, one son, notably private, donated millions to vocational schools and trade programs. Tom clicked on an older article and found a rare personal quote. My father was a mechanic who died with engine oil under his fingernails and dreams. In his heart, everything I build is just trying to finish what he started. He closed the laptop and picked up her business card again. The address was for an office building downtown, but she'd written something on the back in neat handwriting. The offer is sincere. A B. Through the thin apartment walls, he could hear their neighbor's television blaring a game show. Someone upstairs was arguing. A siren wailed in the distance. This was their life. Not fancy, not easy, but theirs. He looked at the photo, stuck, to the refrigerator. Him and Emma at the county fair last summer, her face painted like a butterfly, his shirt stained with snow cone syrup. Next to it hung her Father's Day card from kindergarten, World's Best Dad, in crooked crayon letters. Tom walked quietly to Emma's doorway and watched her sleep, Mr. Bunny tucked under one arm. Sarah had made that stuffed rabbit when she was first. Diagnosed, wanting to leave something soft for Emma to hold on to. What would you do, Sarah? He whispered to the empty air. Some crazy rich lady wants to marry me because I fixed her car. You'd laugh yourself sick, wouldn't you? He could almost hear her voice. Tom Henderson, you think too much. What does your gut say? His gut said this was insane. His gut said Victoria Sterling lived in a different world, one where people investigated mechanics and proposed marriage to strangers. His gut said he had no business even thinking about this, but his gut also remembered the way she'd looked at the Mustang, not like a possession, but like a connection to someone she'd lost. The same way he looked at Mr. Bunny or Sarah's cookbook on the shelf. Tom placed the business card on top of the bills and went to bed. Through his bedroom window, he could see the Shelby, parked under the apartment's lone streetlight. gleaming, like a jewel, among the tired sedans and minivans. 1 week, he muttered, pulling the covers up. What's the worst that could happen in 1 week? As it turned out, quite a lot. A week passed in a blur of curious stares and whispered conversations. Tom had driven the Shelby exactly twice, once around the block to make sure everything was running smoothly, and once to take Emma for ice cream, where she'd insisted on eating in the car despite his protests about chocolate sauce and leather seats. He was under a Civic doing an oil change when he heard it, the distinctive rumble of another classic Mustang pulling into the garage. This one sounded rougher, wounded, like it was running on hope and maybe 5 cylinders. Tom. Murphy's voice carried a note of amusement. You've got a visitor. Tom slid out from under the car to find Victoria Sterling standing beside a weathered 1965 Mustang, this one in desperate need of everything. Rust bloomed across the quarter panels like brown flowers, and the engine coughed rather than purred. Different car, Tom observed, wiping his hands on his coveralls. Different problem, Victoria replied. She'd dressed down again, jeans, work boots, and a flannel shirt that looked suspiciously new. This one needs more than an overnight miracle. This one needs a resurrection. Exactly. She ran her hand along the faded paint, and Tom caught something in her expression, a softness that hadn't been there during the proposal. It was my father's, his project car. He bought it the year I was born, planned to restore it himself. But he spent his weekends working overtime instead, saving for my college fund. She popped the hood, revealing an engine that had seen better decades. He never got past tearing it apart. Tom moved closer, professionally assessing the damage while personally noting the way Victoria's fingers traced the radiator support, gentle as a caress. This is going to take weeks, maybe months. I know. She pulled a pair of work gloves from her back pocket, real ones, not the pristine kind people bought for show. I was hoping you'd teach me, teach you, how to restore it, properly, the way he would have wanted to. She met his eyes, and the billionaire mask slipped completely. I can rebuild a server farm blindfolded, but I never learned to rebuild. An engine, he died before he could teach you. Yeah. Tom studied her for a long moment. This wasn't the same woman who'd proposed marriage like a business merger. This was a daughter, holding on to pieces of her father, trying to build a bridge across years of absence. First thing, he said, moving to his tool chest, is proper assessment. Can't fix what you don't understand. They worked side by side for the next 3 hours. Victoria proved to be a quick study, her hands steady and sure once shown the basics. She asked intelligent questions, took notes in a small leather journal, and didn't flinch when grease smeared across her cheek. You know your way around an engine, Tom observed, as she correctly identified a cracked valve cover. Theory, mostly. Dad used to draw diagrams on napkins during dinner. Mom hated it. A smile flickered across her face. He'd quiz me on part names between bites of spaghetti. Smart man, he was. Victoria straightened, stretching her back. He died when I was 19. Heart attack at work, at someone else's shop, fixing someone else's dream while his sat in our garage gathering dust. Tom knew the weight of those words, the way regret could settle in your chest like lead. My wife used to say the only real failure was not trying. Wise woman, she was. They continued working in companionable silence until Emma burst through. The door after school, backpack dragging and face lit with excitement. Dad, I got 100 on my spelling test, and she skidded to a stop, noticing Victoria. Oh, hi yourself. Victoria smiled, and it transformed her face entirely. You must be Emma. Are you the princess lady? Tom's face flushed, but Victoria laughed, a genuine sound that filled the garage. No princess, just a lady learning. About cars from your dad. He's really good at cars, Emma informed her seriously. He can fix anything. One time my bike chain came off and, Emma, honey, why don't you start your homework in the office? But Dad, I'll come check it in a bit. Emma trudged toward the office, but not before stage whispering, she's prettier than Mackenzie's. Mom said, Victoria tried to hide her smile as Tom's face went from red to burgundy. She's very honest. 8-year-olds don't have much filter, neither do billionaires, apparently. Victoria pulled off her gloves, examining her grease-stained hands with something like pride. About that proposal, you don't have to... I do, actually. She leaned against the workbench, choosing her words carefully. I've been thinking about it all week. How it must have sounded. This crazy rich woman proposing to a stranger over a car repair. It was unexpected. It was impulsive and calculated and desperate. She met his eyes. All of those things at once. Do you know how long it's been since someone did something just because it was right? Not for money or recognition or networking opportunities? Tom thought about the night he'd spent with the Shelby, talking to it like an old friend, coaxing it back to life. I was just doing my job. No, you weren't. I've had that car in 3 shops. They all did their job, ran diagnostics, ordered parts, billed hours. You did something else entirely. She paused, vulnerable in a way that probably cost her. You cared. It's a special car. It's my dad's dream. The words came out raw. And you treated it like it mattered. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Tom didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Sometimes silence was its own answer. Victoria straightened, businesslike again, but not cold. I'm modifying my proposal. Oh? I'd like to hire you as my personal mechanic. I have 17 cars that need someone who'll treat them like more than expensive toys. She named a salary that made Tom's knees weak. You'd work from my estate garage, state-of-the-art equipment, regular hours, full benefits. Emma could come after school. There's a pool, a library, space to run around. That's generous. That's practical. I need someone I can trust with things that matter to me. She pulled out a different business card, this one with a personal cell number written on it. The marriage proposal was, call it temporary insanity, brought on by watching someone treat metal and oil like it had a soul. Tom took the card, noting, her fingers trembled slightly, and if I said yes to the job, then we restore this Mustang together. You teach me what my father couldn't. I pay you enough that Emma never has to worry about college. She gathered her things, preparing to leave. And we see what happens when 2 single parents stop pretending they don't understand loneliness. That's a different kind of proposal. It's the kind that makes sense in daylight. Victoria headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. Think about it, Tom. I'm very good at knowing what I want. I'm still learning how to ask for it properly. After she left, Tom found Emma in the office, homework abandoned, face pressed against the window where she'd obviously been watching. She seems nice, Emma offered carefully. She does. And sad, like you sometimes. Out of the mouths of babes. Yeah, kiddo, like me sometimes. Maybe, Emma said, returning to her spelling words. You could be sad together. That's better than being sad alone. Tom ruffled his daughter's hair and wondered when she'd gotten so wise. In the garage, 2 Mustangs sat side by side, one restored and gleaming, one broken and waiting, both carrying the dreams of fathers who'd run out of time. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe some things were worth fixing together. Tom spent 3 sleepless nights staring at Victoria's business card, running calculations on napkins and talking to Sarah's photo on his nightstand. The salary she'd offered was more than he'd make in 5 years at Murphy's. It meant Emma could have braces without payment plans, college without loans, clothes that weren't from the clearance rack. But it's not just about money, he told Murphy over morning coffee, the older man listening with the patience of someone who'd counseled many life decisions over engine repairs. Course it's not, Murphy agreed, steam from his mug fogging his glasses. But let me ask you something. When's the last time you took a chance on anything? I take chances. Name one. Tom opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth was, he'd been living safe since Sarah died. Same job, same apartment, same routines. Safe was good. Safe was stable. Safe was slowly drowning in quicksand while pretending the view was nice. She's got a kid too, Murphy continued. So she understands what you're protecting. And that garage of hers? I drove by it once. Tom, it's the kind of setup we used to dream about. It's not about the garage. No, Murphy said gently. It's about the fact that a beautiful, intelligent woman saw something in you worth proposing to, and you're so convinced you're not worth it that you're looking for excuses to say no. That hit closer to home than Tom cared to admit. The decision came, oddly enough, during Emma's school play. She was tree number 3 in a production about environmental awareness, and Tom sat in the cramped auditorium seat watching her wave her cardboard branches with complete commitment. When she spotted him in the crowd, her whole face lit up. That's when he knew. Emma deserved more than managing on less. She deserved opportunities, choices, a chance to be more than tree number 3 if she wanted. He called Victoria that night. "Tom?" She answered on the second ring, sounding surprised. "Is everything okay? I'd like to accept the job offer, with conditions. I'm listening. I keep working for Murphy 2 days a week. He gave me a chance when no one else would. I won't abandon him. Fair? Emma's schedule comes first. School events, sick days, whatever she needs. Of course. And we take things slow. The job is the job. Anything else, we see what happens naturally." There was a pause. Then Victoria's voice came back warmer. "When can you start?" The following Monday, Tom drove his Honda through the gates of Victoria's estate, Emma beside him with her face pressed against the window. The driveway curved through manicured gardens before revealing a house that was large but not ostentatious, modern. Lines softened by climbing ivy and window boxes full of flowers. "It's like a castle," Emma breathed. "It's just a house, Em. Remember what we talked about? Be polite, don't touch anything without asking, and don't mention the marriage thing. That's my girl." Victoria met them at the garage, a converted stable that was indeed the stuff of dreams. Climate-controlled bays, every tool imaginable, lifts that actually worked, and 17 cars in various states of perfection. "Welcome," she said, then knelt to Emma's level. "You must be the spelling test champion I've heard about." Emma beamed. "I got another 100 last week." "Impressive. I have a son about your age. Marcus. He's at school now, but he's excited to meet you. He's been asking for a friend who doesn't just want to talk about video games." "I like video games," Emma offered. "But I also like books and bikes and science." "Perfect. Marcus loves science. He's currently building a volcano for his science fair project." Victoria stood, addressing Tom. "I thought Emma might like the library while you're working. It's got a children's section, and Mrs. Chen, our housekeeper, has a daughter Emma's age who comes by after school." Tom watched Emma's eyes go wide. At the mention of a library, his daughter devoured books like other kids ate candy, but library trips were limited to what they could carry home on the bus. "Can I see it?" Emma asked, practically vibrating. Victoria led them through a side door into the main house. The library was everything Emma's face suggested she'd dreamed of. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, cozy reading nooks, even a rolling ladder. That made Tom immediately nervous. "The children's section is here." Victoria gestured to a sunny corner with beanbags and low shelves. "And Emma, if you find books you'd like to take home, just let Mrs. Chen know. We have a lending system." "Really?" Emma's voice came out as a squeak. "Really? Now shall we let your dad see his new workspace properly?" Back in the garage, Victoria walked Tom through the collection. Each car had a story. This one bought at auction, that one inherited from a collector, several purchased specifically, because they reminded her of cars her father had admired. "This is the problem," she said, gesturing at the pristine vehicles. "They're museum pieces, beautiful, valuable, and completely soulless. I want them to run like they're meant to. I want to drive them without worrying about every mile decreasing their value." "Cars are meant to be driven," Tom agreed, running his hand along a 1969 Camaro that probably cost more than most people's houses. "Exactly. My financial advisors think I'm crazy. They're investments, Victoria. But investments you can't touch aren't worth much, are they? Tom thought about Emma's college fund, currently consisting of $247 in a savings account. Depends on what you're investing in. They were interrupted by the arrival of a small boy with Victoria's eyes and a serious expression. He wore a school uniform and carried a backpack that looked too big for his frame. "Mom, is this the mechanic who fixed Grandpa's Shelby?" "This is Mr. Henderson, yes." "Tom, this is Marcus." The boy extended his hand formally. "Pleased to meet you. Mom says you can teach us about engines." "Us? Me and your daughter. Mom says she's smart." Tom shook the small hand, charmed despite himself. "Nice to meet you, Marcus. And Emma is very smart." "Good. Smart is better than popular." The boy said it with the certainty of someone who'd learned that lesson early. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Tom would arrive early, Emma would disappear into the library or, increasingly often, pair up with Marcus for homework or projects. The two children bonded with the intensity of lonely kids who'd found kindred spirits. Victoria joined Tom in the garage most afternoons, learning steadily and sharing stories about her father between lessons on carburetor rebuilds. She never mentioned the proposal again, but something grew between them in the quiet moments. A recognition, perhaps, of two people trying to build something from broken pieces. "You're good with him," Tom observed one afternoon, watching her. "Help Marcus with a particularly frustrating math problem. He's easy to be good with, except when he's being 8. They're all difficult at 8. Emma went through a phase where she'd only eat orange foods. Marcus insisted on wearing a cape to school for 6 months. Victoria smiled at the memory. His father was mortified. It was the first time she'd mentioned her ex-husband. Tom didn't. "Push," but she continued. "Richard's very concerned with appearances. Marcus, wearing a cape to a private school fundraiser, nearly gave him hives. But you let him wear it." "Of course. Childhood's short enough without killing the magic early." She met his eyes. "Another thing we agree on, I think." That evening, as Tom helped Emma pack up her homework and new library books, she tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, I like it here." "Yeah? Yeah. Marcus is funny and smart, and Miss Victoria lets me borrow any book I want, and Mrs. Chen makes cookies." She paused, then added quietly, "And you smile more." Tom knelt beside his daughter. "Do I?" "Uh-huh. Like you used to. Before." Before. Such a small word to carry so much weight. As they drove home, Tom caught sight of himself in the rearview mirror. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe he was smiling more. The job was good, the pay was better, but something else was shifting. For the first time in 5 years, the future felt like possibility instead of just persistence. In the garage apartment, he'd hung Victoria's business card on the refrigerator next to Emma's artwork and report cards. Below her official title, she'd written something else in that same neat handwriting. "Thank you for saying yes." Tom wasn't sure yet what he'd said yes to. Just the job, or something more. But for now, it was enough to be moving forward instead of standing still. Saturday mornings at the Sterling estate became their new tradition. Tom would arrive with Emma, toolbox in one hand and her backpack in the other, to find Marcus already in the garage, wearing coveralls Victoria had bought him. Proper ones. The boy insisted, like real mechanics wear. "Today," Tom announced to his eager audience of 2 8-year-olds, "we're learning about brake systems." "Why do cars need brakes?" Marcus asked, notebook already out. "So they can stop, dummy," Emma said, then caught herself. "Sorry, that wasn't nice." "It's okay," Marcus replied earnestly. "Sometimes I ask obvious questions to make sure I understand the fundamentals." Tom hid his smile. The boy talked like a tiny professor, all formal words and careful pronunciation. Emma, meanwhile, had grease under her fingernails within 5 minutes and couldn't be happier about it. Victoria appeared with coffee and her own notebook. She'd given up pretending she was too busy to join these sessions, admitting that watching Tom teach the children helped her understand her father's passion in ways her MBA never could. "Mrs. Chen says lunch is at 1, she announced, handing. Tommy's coffee, black, 2 sugars, exactly how he liked it. Somehow she'd learned that without asking. "Can we eat in the garage?" Emma asked hopefully. "Absolutely not," Victoria and Tom said in unison, then caught each other's eyes and laughed. "You sound like parents," Marcus observed, returning to his notes with the air of someone who'd made an important scientific observation. An awkward silence fell. Emma, with her gift for unintentional saves, broke it by crawling under the car. "They were working on. Cool. I can see everything from down here." The rest of the morning passed in easy rhythm. Tom explained how hydraulic pressure worked, while Victoria asked the questions the children were too shy to voice. When Marcus struggled with a wrench, Tom guided his hands patiently. When Emma got frustrated with a stuck bolt, Victoria showed her how to apply penetrating oil and weight. "Patience is the hardest part," Victoria said, sitting cross-legged on the garage floor beside Emma. "Designer jeans be damned, but good things usually require it." After lunch, which Mrs. Chen insisted, they eat at actual tables like civilized people. The children discovered the tire swing in the back garden. Their laughter drifted through the windows as Tom and Victoria returned to the garage alone. "I've been thinking about my father a lot lately," Victoria said, working on removing the old brake pads they'd started with. "He would have loved this. Teaching Marcus, seeing Emma so excited about learning. Sarah would have too," Tom admitted. "She always said Emma got her stubbornness from me, but her curiosity from her." "Tell me about her, Sarah." Tom paused, considering. People usually avoided the topic, as if mentioning his dead wife might break him. But Victoria asked like she genuinely wanted to know. She was a nurse. Pediatric ward. Loved kids, obviously. "We met when I brought in my nephew after he broke his arm falling off his bike." Tom smiled at the memory. "She gave me hell for letting a 7-year-old attempt a homemade ramp." Sounds like she had good sense. "The best. She was light. You know, the kind of person who made everything brighter just by being there. When she got sick, she spent more time comforting everyone else than worrying about herself." Victoria's hand stilled on the wrench. "How long was she ill?" 2 years. Good days and bad days. Near the end, mostly bad. Tom focused on his work. Muscle memory guiding his hands. "She made me promise to keep living, not just existing. I'm not sure I've kept that promise very well. I think you're doing better than you know." They worked quietly for a while before Victoria spoke again. "Richard, my ex. He never understood why I cared about my father's dreams. He's dead, Victoria. Let it go." "As if love has an expiration date." "Some people don't get it," Tom agreed. "They think moving on means forgetting." "Exactly. But look at us. You're still wearing your wedding ring, and I'm spending millions collecting cars my father drew on napkins. We're quite the pair of sentimental fools. Could be worse things to be." Victoria smiled, the soft one that appeared when she forgot to be a CEO. "Much worse." A crash from outside interrupted them, followed by guilty giggles. Through the window, they could see both children covered in mud, the tire swing spinning empty. "Marcus Edward Sterling," Victoria called, trying to sound stern. "Emma, Marie Henderson," Tom added. The children froze. Then Marcus said solemnly, "We can explain." "The swing was a physics experiment," Emma added quickly. "That went wrong," Marcus concluded. Tom and Victoria exchanged looks and simultaneously burst out laughing. The children, realizing they weren't in serious trouble, began laughing too. "Bath time," Victoria declared. "Both of you. March." "But we're not done with the breaks," Emma protested. "The breaks will be here tomorrow," Tom assured her. "Go on, get cleaned up." As the children trudged toward the house, leaving muddy footprints in their wake, Victoria shook her head. "I haven't seen Marcus this happy ever, actually. Emma either. She asked me yesterday if Marcus could be her brother. What did you tell her? That families come in all shapes." Tom wiped his hands on a rag, choosing his words carefully. "She's getting attached. They both are. Is that a bad thing? Depends. On? What happens when this arrangement ends?" Victoria turned to face him fully. "Who says it has to end?" everything ends, Victoria. Jobs, arrangements, even—" He gestured vaguely, encompassing the growing whatever this was between them. "God, you're as much of a pessimist as I am," but she said it fondly. "Maybe that's why this works. Neither of us expects fairy tales. Emma does. Marcus too, in his way." "Then maybe," Victoria said quietly, "we owe it to them to at least try believing in happy endings, even if we're out of practice." That evening, Tom stayed for dinner, a rarity that was becoming less rare. The formal dining room had been abandoned in favor of the kitchen table, where Emma and Marcus could compare their notebooks full of car facts while the adults talked. "Did you know," Marcus announced through a mouthful of spaghetti, "that Mr. Henderson, once rebuilt an entire engine in 6 hours? Did you know," Emma countered, "that Miss Victoria's company makes the chips that go in race cars? Actually, we make the processors for the diagnostic equipment," Victoria corrected gently, "but close enough." "That's what I said," Emma replied with 8-year-old confidence. The easy banter continued through dinner and dessert. Mrs. Chen beamed approvingly from the kitchen, muttering something in Mandarin that made Victoria blush. "What did she say?" Tom asked. "Nothing important. She said Mom looks happy," Marcus translated helpfully, "and that it's about time." "Thank you, Marcus," Victoria said dryly. "Remind me to cancel your Mandarin lessons." As Tom helped Emma gather her things to leave, she made a detour to hug Victoria goodbye, a new development that seemed to surprise them both. "Thank you for letting me borrow this," Emma said, clutching a book about female engineers. "Keep it," Victoria said softly. "It's yours." In the car, Emma was unusually quiet until they were almost home. "Dad, do you like Miss Victoria?" "Sure, kiddo, she's very nice." "No, do you like her?" Tom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Where's this coming from?" "Marcus asked me if you were going to be his dad." "What did you tell him?" "That I didn't know, but I wouldn't mind if he was my brother." She paused. "Was that okay?" Tom pulled into their parking spot, buying time. It's complicated. Because Mom died." The directness of it stole his breath. "Partly. I miss Mom," Emma said quietly, "but I don't think she'd want us to be sad. Forever. She wouldn't want you to be alone. I'm not alone. I have you. That's different and you know it." Sometimes Emma sounded far older than 8. "Miss Victoria is nice, and she's sad like you. And she lets me read any book I want. And she makes you laugh. Mom would like her." Tom reached over to squeeze his daughter's hand. "You might be right, kiddo." "I usually am," Emma said matter-of-factly, then bounced out of the car, as if they'd been discussing nothing more serious than homework. That night, after Emma was asleep, Tom stood in his bedroom looking at the photo on his nightstand, him and Sarah on their wedding day, both impossibly young and unaware of how short their time would be. "She's nothing like you," he whispered to the photo. "You were sunshine and she's moonlight, I guess, quieter, sadder. But Emma's right. You'd like her. You'd like that she makes me want to try again." He thought about Victoria's question. Who says it has to end? Maybe it didn't. Maybe some broken things could be rebuilt stronger than before. Maybe 2 damaged people could create something whole. His phone buzzed with a text. "Victoria, the children want to know if you're both free next Saturday. Marcus is insisting on showing Emma his volcano before the science fair." Tom typed back, "We'll be there." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Good. It wouldn't be the same without you." Another pause, then, "Either of you." Tom smiled, set the phone aside, and for the first time in years fell asleep without the weight of loneliness pressing on his chest. In the apartment next door, someone was playing music too loud. Upstairs, the familiar sound of footsteps paced, back and forth, but here, in this small bedroom with its water-stained ceiling and second-hand furniture, something was changing. Hope, that dangerous and persistent thing, was taking root despite his best efforts to keep it at bay. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe good things just required patience. Maybe happy endings weren't just for children and fairy tales. Maybe. The science fair was in full swing when Richard Sterling III arrived like a storm cloud at a picnic. Tom noticed him first. Hard to miss a man who walked like he owned not just the room, but the entire building. Expensive suit, expensive shoes, expensive haircut, and the kind of tan that came from yachts, not yard work. Daddy. Marcus's voice carried across the gymnasium, but it was more surprise than joy. Richard nodded to his son the way you'd acknowledge a business associate. Then his eyes found Victoria. She stood frozen beside Marcus's volcano display, her face cycling through emotions too quickly for Tom to catalogue. "Victoria, we need to talk." "Richard." Her CEO voice slammed into place like armor. "This is hardly the time or place. When you won't return my lawyer's calls, I make my own time and place." His gaze slid to Tom, cataloguing and dismissing in one sweep. "And you are?" "Tom Henderson." Tom didn't offer his hand. Something about this man made his mechanic's instincts scream danger, like an engine about to throw a rod. The mechanic. Richard said it like he might say, the help. How quaint. Emma pressed closer to Tom's side, her small hand finding his. Marcus looked between his parents like a diplomat calculating casualties. "Perhaps we should step outside," Victoria suggested. But Richard was already making himself comfortable, examining his son's project with theatrical interest. "Quite impressive, Marcus, though I see you've inherited your mother's tendency toward unconventional choices." His eyes flicked meaningfully between Tom and Victoria. "Speaking of which, I hear you've been playing house with the hired help." Richard, exposing our son to inappropriate situations, confusing him with your little working-class experiment. He turned to Tom with a smile that belonged on a shark. "No offense, of course. I'm sure you're very good at... What is it you do? Oil changes?" "Dad, Tom's teaching me about engines," Marcus interjected. "And Emma's my friend, and yes, I'm sure it's all very educational." Richard's tone suggested otherwise. "However, your mother seems to have forgotten that our custody agreement has very specific clauses about the environments you're exposed to." Tom felt Victoria stiffen beside him. Don't what? Exercise my parental rights? Protect my son from your increasingly erratic behavior?" Richard pulled out his phone. "With practiced efficiency. First the marriage proposal to a stranger. Oh yes, that made it to my lawyers. And now this. Whatever this is, playing family with someone so obviously beneath—" "Stop!" Victoria's voice could have frozen fire. "Not here, not in front of the children." But Emma, sweet Emma who'd inherited her mother's protective instincts and her father's stubborn streak, stepped forward. "You're mean." The gymnasium seemed to pause, collective breath held. Richard looked down at her with amused disdain. "I beg your pardon." "You're mean," Emma repeated louder. "And you're wrong about my dad. He's not beneath anybody. He's the best mechanic in the state. And he's nice. And he makes Miss Victoria smile. And you're just jealous because nobody smiles when you show up." "Emma," Tom warned. "But his daughter was on a roll. And Marcus doesn't even like you. He told me so. He said you only visit. When you want something and you never play with him or read to him or teach him anything cool." "Emma Marie Henderson." Tom scooped her up, but the damage was done. Richard's face had gone from tan to pink to an alarming shade of purple. "This," he said with icy precision, "is exactly what I'm talking about. Exposing Marcus to ill-mannered children and their equally inappropriate parents." He turned to Victoria. "Expect papers from my lawyers Monday morning. Full custody review. We'll see what a judge thinks about your unconventional choices." Marcus burst into tears. Not the loud sobs of a hurt child, but the silent tears of a boy who'd learned early that making noise during parental conflicts only made things worse. Victoria knelt beside him, whispering reassurances while shooting daggers at her ex-husband. "You got what you wanted," she said quietly. "You've upset everyone. Happy now? I'm protecting my son's interests." "You're protecting your own ego." Victoria stood, lifting Marcus with her. "You didn't care about his interests when you missed his birthday for a golf tournament, or when you forgot his piano recital, Or when you told him crying was for babies? When Whiskers died, Whiskers was a hamster. Whiskers was his friend. The science fair had definitely noticed them now. The parents pretended to study displays while obviously eavesdropping. Tom wanted to sink into the floor, but Emma was clinging to him like a koala, and Marcus needed support. "We're leaving," Tom announced. "Em, grab your backpack." But Dad, now, Victoria, caught his arm as he turned to go. "Tom, wait. I'm sorry, this isn't—" "It's fine," he lied. "Handle your family stuff. We'll talk later." But as he carried Emma out, he heard Richard's parting shot. "Better run, mechanic. This isn't your world, and it never will be." The drive home was silent, except for Emma's sniffles. Tom's mind raced through implications. Custody battles, lawyers, the ugliness that followed when money got involved in family disputes. He'd watched Sarah's parents try something similar when she got sick, convinced they could provide better care than a mechanic's salary. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered as they pulled into their parking spot. "I ruined everything." "Hey, no." Tom turned to face her. "You stood up for people you care about. That's never wrong. Maybe could have done it quieter, but he was so mean." "Dad, he made Marcus cry." "I know, baby. Is Miss Victoria going to lose Marcus?" Tom didn't have an answer for that. He'd seen enough of the world to know that money talked louder than love in courtrooms, that lawyers could twist unconventional into inappropriate without breaking a sweat. They were eating a subdued dinner of leftover pizza when his phone rang. "Victoria." "Tom? Can we talk?" "Give me a sec." He stepped onto their small balcony, closing the door behind him. "How's Marcus?" "Asleep. Finally. He asked if you and Emma hated him now." "What?" "No, of course not." "I told him that, but—" She sighed, sounding exhausted. "Richard does this. Shows up just when things are good, reminds me that happiness is conditional, that everything I have can be taken away. The custody thing is— He's serious?" "Dead serious. He doesn't actually want Marcus full-time. That would interfere with his lifestyle, but he wants to win. And he wants to punish me for moving on." Tom gripped the balcony railing. "This is why you wanted background. Checks and investigations. You knew something like this might happen. I knew Richard would object to me being with anyone. I hoped maybe if it was someone successful, established." She laughed bitterly. "God, that sounds awful. Like I was shopping for a resume instead of a person." "Victoria, but then I saw you with that car and later with Emma and the way you treat people, even machines, like they matter. And I thought maybe, just maybe, I could have something real, something Richard couldn't buy or break." "He can't break this," Tom said, not sure what this was, but certain of his words. "Whatever his lawyers throw at us, we'll handle it." "Us? You think I'm running because some rich jackass in an ugly tie tried to intimidate me?" Tom found himself smiling grimly. "I've rebuilt engines that were supposedly dead, Victoria. I don't give up easy." Silence on the line, then. "I don't deserve you." "Yeah, well, I don't deserve you either, so we're even." "Tom." "Yeah. Tell Emma that Marcus doesn't hate her. He actually said she was the bravest person he knows." "I'll tell her." "And Tom, thank you for not running. Most people would." After they hung up, Tom found Emma curled on the couch with Mr. Bunny, Sarah's cookbook open on her lap. "You okay, kiddo?" "I was looking for Mom's hot chocolate recipe. The one that makes everything better." She looked up at him with eyes too wise for 8. "But I don't think hot chocolate fixes custody battles." Tom sat beside her, pulling her close. "No, probably not, but it doesn't hurt to try." They made hot chocolate together, Sarah's way, with extra marshmallows and a sprinkle of cinnamon. As they sipped, Emma asked, "Are we still going to see them? Marcus and Miss Victoria?" "I don't know, Em. It's complicated now. Because of Marcus's—" "Oh, Dad." "Yeah." Emma considered this, marshmallow foam on her upper lip. "You know what Mom used to say, that bullies only win if you let them. When did Mom say that? When Kayla Thompson was being mean in kindergarten, Mom said bullies are just scared people making noise." She looked at him seriously. "I think Mr. Richard is a scared people." "Scared of what?" of Miss Victoria being happy without him, of Marcus liking you better, of not being the most important. Emma snuggled closer. But we're not going to let him win, right? Tom kissed the top of her head, marveling at the fierce little warrior he was raising. Right, baby, we're not going to let him win. But as he tucked her into bed later, Tom's confidence wavered. He knew the reality of custody battles, had seen good parents lose to wealthy ones, had watched the system favor bank accounts over bedtime stories. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. My lawyer says Richard's threat is mostly bluster, but mostly isn't completely. I understand if you need to step back. This isn't what you signed up for. Tom typed back, I signed up to restore broken things. Some just take longer than others. A pause, then, you're either very brave or very foolish. ¿Por qué no los dos? Tom responded, remembering enough high school Spanish for the joke. Now you're just showing off. Good night, Tom. Good night, Victoria. Tom stood in his daughter's doorway, watching her sleep with Mr. Bunny clutched tight. In the morning, they'd face whatever came next. Richard Sterling III and his lawyers and his money could try to tear apart what they were building. But Tom had rebuilt engines from scrap metal and determination. He'd held his wife's hand through chemo and raised a daughter. Solo and kept going when stopping would have been easier. He could handle one bitter ex-husband, he hoped. Tom found the folder by accident. He'd been looking for the invoice for the vintage Corvette parts Victoria had ordered, shuffling through papers on her desk while she took a call from her lawyers. The manila folder fell open, spilling photographs and documents across the mahogany surface. His own face stared back at him from a dozen different angles. Tom at work, Tom picking up Emma from school, Tom grocery shopping, Tom at Sarah's grave on the anniversary of her death. What the hell? Victoria ended her call abruptly, color draining from her face as she saw what he'd discovered. Tom, I can explain. Explain? He held up a photo taken with a telephoto lens, showing him reading Emma a bedtime story through their apartment window. Explain why you have surveillance photos of me and my daughter. It's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you hired someone to stalk us. His hands shook as he flipped through more evidence. Background checks, credit reports, Sarah's obituary, Emma's school records. Jesus Christ, Victoria. Emma's medical records? You pulled my kid's medical records? I needed to know. What? Her blood type? Her vaccination schedule? Tom's voice rose with each word. What possible reason could you have for... He stopped, a worse thought occurring. How long? How long before you brought the Shelby? Victoria sank into a chair, suddenly, looking older than her years. 6 months. 6 months. Tom laughed, but there was no humor in it. 6 fucking months of what? Watching us? Studying us like lab rats? It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. He slammed the folder shut, making her flinch, because from where I'm standing, it looks like a rich woman playing games. With people's lives. I wasn't playing games. Victoria's voice came out raw. I was looking for something, someone. For what? Your sick entertainment? For hope. The words exploded from her. I was looking for hope, okay? For proof that there were still good people in the world. People who did the right thing because it was right, not because they wanted something. Tom stared at her, torn between anger and confusion. So you hired a private investigator? I hired 12 private investigators. She met his eyes, defiant now. Over 2 years. Do you know what I found? Mechanics who overcharged, who did unnecessary work, who took advantage of people who didn't know better. One guy in Boston was running a whole scam targeting elderly customers, and that justifies stalking me. No, nothing justifies it. Victoria pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. But maybe this explains it. She opened it, revealing similar surveillance on other mechanics, dozens of them, all working on the same car, the Shelby. My father's dream car, she said quietly. I've been taking it to different shops for 2 years. Same problem every time. Most didn't even try to fix it properly, just charged for diagnostics and parts. Some tried to buy it from me, sensing desperation. One tried to convince me it was unfixable, hoping I'd sell it for scrap. Tom sank into the opposite chair, anger giving way to bewilderment. You tested them? I tested everyone. I was so tired, Tom. Tired of being seen as a wallet with legs. Tired of people being nice to my face while calculating what they could get from me. Richard trained me well. Trust no one. Assume everyone has an angle. So you found me? Murphy's garage came up in a search for certified mechanics. Small shop, good reviews, nothing special. I almost didn't bother. She pulled out a specific report. But then I read this. Tom recognized the incident. Mrs. Patterson, whose husband had died and left her with a classic Thunderbird she couldn't afford to maintain. He'd fixed it for parts cost only, setting up a payment plan that was basically whenever she could manage it. The investigator called you financially foolish but ethically consistent. Victoria almost smiled. He documented 17 similar incidents over 5 years. You fixing cars for cost, bartering repairs for goods, staying late to help stranded motorists, no publicity, no tax write-offs, just helping. That's what people do. No, Victoria said firmly, that's what you do, what good people do. But Tom, I'd spent 2 years learning that good people were extinct in my tax bracket. Tom rubbed his face, trying to process the magnitude of her deception. So you watched me for 6 months, then brought the Shelby. I watched 16 mechanics for various periods. You were different from the start. She pulled out another photo. Tom at the garage, talking to a carburetor as he rebuilt it. The investigator sent me this with a note. Subject appears to have emotional attachment to inanimate objects, like it was a mental defect. Maybe it is. Maybe. Or maybe it's exactly what I was looking for. Victoria leaned forward. Do you know what you said to that carburetor? The investigator had audio. You said, "Come on, sweetheart, I know you've got more miles in you. Just need someone to believe in you." Tom felt heat rise in his cheeks. I talked to engines, so what? So my father did the same thing. Every car was a person to him. Had names, personalities, moods. Her voice caught. I spent millions collecting. His dream cars, but they were just metal. Beautiful, expensive metal. Until you. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. But that night, watching you work on the security feed, I saw my father. Same focus, same care, same ridiculous one-sided conversations with machinery. She met his eyes. And I thought, if this man can love a stranger's car this much, imagine how he loves his daughter. Don't. Tom's voice came out rough. Don't. Bring Emma into your justification. You're right. I'm sorry. Victoria closed the folders, pushed them aside. The proposal wasn't planned. I drove there to pay you, maybe offer you steady work. But then you were explaining what you'd done, and you mentioned staying up because she needed it, and you meant the car, but I heard my father's voice, and I just asked, because I reminded you of your dead father, because you reminded me that people like my father still existed, people who create instead of consume, who fix instead of discard, who see beauty in broken things. Tom stood, pacing to the window. Marcus and Emma were in the garden, building something elaborate with Legos under Mrs. Chen's watchful eye. You researched my daughter, her medical history, her school, her mother's death, your wife's entire medical journey, your financial struggles during her treatment, the second mortgage you took out, the bankruptcy you almost filed but didn't because you wanted to teach Emma about keeping commitments. Victoria's voice was steady but sad. I know it all, Tom. Every struggle, every late payment, every night you probably lay awake wondering how to make ends meet, and you thought, what? Here's a desperate man I can buy. I thought, here's a man who chose his daughter's needs over his own comfort every single time, who kept his wedding ring on, who brought flowers to his wife's grave even when he could barely afford groceries. She stood too, moving closer, but not touching. I thought, here's someone who understands that love isn't about what you can get, but what you're willing to give. Stop. Tom turned from the window. Just stop. You can't justify this with pretty words about love and understanding. You invaded our privacy. You had people watching my kid at school. Only twice. To verify enrollment and only twice? Tom laughed harshly. Oh, well, that's fine then. Only twice violated my daughter's privacy. You're right, you're absolutely right. Victoria moved to her desk, pulled out her phone. I'll call Dr. Morrison, my therapist. She's been telling me for years that my trust issues would destroy any chance at real relationships. Guess she wins that bet. This isn't about your trust issues, Victoria. This is about control. I know. She set the phone down without dialing. Richard controlled me with emotional manipulation, so I decided to control everyone else with information. Know everything, anticipate everything, never be surprised again. Tom watched her shoulders slump, the CEO armor finally cracking completely. How many others did you test, besides mechanics? 17 potential romantic partners over 3 years, various setups, charity events, business meetings, even 2 blind dates my friends arranged. She laughed bitterly. The investigators' reports were depressing reading. Married men lying about it. Gold diggers Googling my net worth in the bathroom. One memorable gentleman who tried to steal my identity. So you gave up on traditional dating and started surveilling blue-collar workers. I gave up on my world. Entirely. Started looking in places Richard would never think to look. Places where people worked with their hands and paid their bills and loved their families without calculation. She met his eyes. Places where I might find someone who'd see me as Victoria, not as a bank account or a business connection or a trophy. And you found me. I found you reading Goodnight Moon to Emma for the 1,000th time, with the same enthusiasm as the first. I found you teaching that teenager down the street about oil changes for free. I found you being exactly who you are. When you thought no one was watching, Tom sank back into the chair, anger giving way to exhaustion. I don't know what to do with this, Victoria. The violation of it, the deception. I know. If you'd just asked me out like a normal person, would you have said yes? The billionaire asking out the mechanic? Or would you have assumed I was slumming, playing games, looking for rough trade to scandalize my rich friends? Tom couldn't answer that honestly. His first instinct would have been suspicion. I did everything wrong, Victoria continued. But Tom, I found everything right. You, Emma, the way Marcus lights up when you teach him something, the way you and I work together, in comfortable silence, the way Emma reads to Marcus and he helps her with math. We fit despite everything that says we shouldn't. You mean you made us fit, studied us until you knew exactly how to— No, her voice turned fierce. I studied you, yes, but I can't. Fake Emma's laugh when Marcus tells his terrible jokes. I can't manufacture the way you smile when you think I'm not looking. I can't create the feeling I get when all 4 of us are together, like maybe the broken pieces of our families could build something whole. Tom thought about the past months. The easy rhythm they'd fallen into, the way Victoria challenged him, supported him, matched him, the way their children had bonded like siblings separated at birth. Does Marcus know about the investigation? God, no. He's 8, Tom. He just knows I'm happier now. That we're happier. And if Richard finds out? This surveillance stuff. Victoria's face went pale. He'd use it to bury me in court, prove I'm unstable, manipulative, unfit. She straightened her shoulders. Which is why I'm telling you now, because Richard's investigators are thorough. They'll find it eventually, and you deserve to hear it from me. You mean I deserve to hear it 6 months ago? Yes. They stood in silence, the weight of truth heavy between them. Outside, the children's laughter drifted through the window, innocent, unaware of the adult complications threatening their newfound happiness. I need time, Tom finally said, to think, to figure out if I can get past this. I understand. I'm not taking Emma away from Marcus. Whatever happens between us, they're friends. Thank you. Tom headed for the door, paused. The investigation, is it still active? I terminated it the day after I proposed, fired the investigator, destroyed most of the files. She gestured to the folders. Kept these as reminder of what fear makes people do, what it made me do. Don't contact me for a few days. Let me work through this. Tom, Victoria called as he reached the door. For what it's worth, everything after that first day has been real. No games, no tests, no surveillance. Just us. Tom didn't answer. Couldn't. He collected Emma, made excuses. About work, ignored her protests about leaving Marcus mid-game. The drive home was quiet, his mind churning through everything he'd learned. Victoria had investigated him like he was a business acquisition, violated his privacy, Emma's privacy, built a file on their lives like they were assets to be evaluated, but she'd also seen him, really seen him, in a way no one had since Sarah. Had recognized something in him worth pursuing, worth proposing to, worth fighting for. That night, after Emma was asleep, Tom sat with the ring he'd worn for 5 years, twisting it as he thought. Sarah had always said he was too trusting, too willing to see the good in people. But she'd also said that was what she loved most about him. What do I do here, Sarah? He whispered to the empty room. She lied, but she also chose us. She's controlling and damaged and probably needs years of therapy, but she makes me want to try again. And Emma loves them both. No answer came, of course. The dead kept their counsel. But somewhere in the silence, Tom thought he heard Sarah's laugh. The one that meant he was overcomplicating something simple. The question wasn't whether Victoria had done wrong. She had. The question was whether what they were building together was worth fighting through the wreckage of her fear and his pride to find something true on the other side. Tom didn't have that answer yet, but for the first time since finding those folders, he thought maybe, just maybe, he wanted to find out. The courthouse steps seemed designed to intimidate, all marble and gravity, making ordinary people feel small. Tom adjusted his only suit, the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral, and wished he'd had time to get it pressed. Beside him, Emma clutched his hand, her Sunday dress already wrinkled from nervous fidgeting. "Remember what we talked about?" Tom asked gently. "Tell the truth. Don't be scared. The judge is just trying to help Marcus." Emma recited the words, but her voice shook. "Dad, what if I mess up?" "You won't, kiddo. Just be yourself." Inside, the hallway echoed with footsteps and muffled conversations. Victoria stood near a window with her legal team, 3 lawyers in suits that probably cost more than Tom's car. She looked pale but composed, every inch the CEO, except for the way her hands trembled around her coffee cup. Marcus sat on a bench between 2 court officers, looking smaller than his 8 years in his formal clothes. When he saw Emma, his face lit up briefly before remembering he was supposed to be serious. "The children will be interviewed separately," one of Victoria's lawyers explained to Tom. "Judge Morrison likes to hear from them directly in custody modifications." "Where's Richard?" Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Conference room B," the lawyer said with distaste, "with his team, all 5 of them, 5 lawyers, because apparently destroying his ex-wife required a full legal battalion." Tom started toward Victoria, but her lead attorney intercepted him. "Mr. Henderson, we need to discuss your testimony." "My testimony? Mr. Sterling has indicated he'll be calling you as a witness, something about demonstrating the inappropriate influences on Marcus." The lawyer, Diane something, studied him over her glasses. "We need to prepare you for cross-examination." But before they could begin, the courtroom doors opened. Time to begin. Judge Morrison looked like everyone's favorite grandmother, white-haired and kind-eyed until she spoke. Then Steele showed through. The softness. "This is a custody modification hearing, not a trial," she announced. "I'll remind all parties that my only concern is the best interests of the minor child, Marcus Sterling. Grandstanding, character assassination, or turning this into a circus will not be tolerated." Richard's lead attorney stood. "Your Honor, We believe the current custody arrangement is no longer in Marcus's best interests due to Ms. Sterling's recent erratic behavior and poor judgment in her personal associations. Noted, Ms. Sterling's counsel. Diane rose smoothly. Your Honor, Mr. Sterling's sudden concern for his son's welfare coincidentally aligns with Ms. Sterling entering a stable, healthy relationship. We believe this petition is retaliatory and without merit. I'll be the judge of that. Judge Morrison shuffled papers. I'll interview the children first, separately. Then I'll hear from both parties and any relevant witnesses. Emma went first. Tom watched her disappear into the judge's chambers, looking impossibly small but determined. The 30 minutes she was gone felt like hours. She emerged slightly teary, but managed a thumbs up to Tom before the court officer escorted her to a separate room. Marcus went next, and Victoria's composure finally cracked. She reached for Tom's hand without seeming to realize it, holding tight while her son was questioned about his life, his parents, his feelings. When Marcus emerged an hour later, he looked exhausted. The judge called a brief recess, and Tom found himself in the hallway with Victoria while the lawyers huddled. I can't lose him, Victoria whispered. I can't. He's everything. You won't, Tom said, hoping it was true. You don't understand. Richard has connections. Judges, politicians. If he really wants... She stopped, visibly pulling herself together. I'm sorry. About everything. The investigation, dragging you into this mess. You should take Emma and go. Distance yourself before... Stop! Tom turned her to face him. We're not going anywhere. But if Richard makes this about you, about us, then he makes it about us. I told you, I don't run from bullies. Victoria searched his face. After what I did, the surveillance. We'll deal with that later. Right now, Marcus needs both of us strong. Court reconvened with Richard taking the stand. He painted a picture of Victoria as unstable, impulsive, exposing their son to inappropriate situations with unsuitable people. Every word dripped with disdain as he described Tom's profession, his financial status, his influence on Marcus. My son comes home talking about carburetors and engine oil, Richard said with disgust. He's being encouraged in blue-collar pursuits instead of preparing for his real future. His real future, Judge Morrison asked mildly. Business, leadership, the Sterling legacy. Richard straightened his tie. Not playing mechanic with the hired help. Tom felt Victoria tense beside him. Her lawyers objected, but the damage was done. The cross-examination revealed more. Richard hadn't attended a school event in 2 years, missed birthdays, cancelled his custody weekends 60% of the time, but he painted each absence as necessary sacrifice for business, for securing Marcus's financial future. Then it was Victoria's turn. She testified with quiet dignity about her efforts to give Marcus a normal childhood, about Tom's positive influence, about the joy of watching their children become friends. Ms. Sterling, Richard's lawyer attacked, isn't it true you proposed marriage to Mr. Henderson the very first time you met him? Yes. After having him investigated for 6 months, the courtroom went silent. Victoria's lawyers hadn't known about the investigation. Tom saw Diane's face go rigid with suppressed fury. Yes, Victoria said quietly. So you admit to stalking Mr. Henderson? To making major life decisions based on surveillance reports rather than genuine emotion? I admit to being afraid, Victoria said, lifting her chin. Afraid of being used again. Afraid of exposing Marcus to someone who might hurt him. So yes, I investigated Tom, and what I found was a good man, a dedicated father, someone who would enhance my son's life, not diminish it. You mean someone you could control with money? Objection! Diane stood. I'll rephrase. Richard's lawyer smirked. Miss Sterling, do you pay Mr. Henderson's salary? He works for me, yes. So this relationship began as employer and employee. It began as 2 single parents recognizing something in each other. The questioning went on, each answer twisted to sound sordid or calculated. By the time Tom was called to testify, the narrative was clear. Unstable rich woman buys herself a blue-collar boyfriend, confusing her innocent child in the process. "Mr. Henderson," Richard's lawyer began, "you have a daughter, correct?" "Yes. Emma. She's 8, the same age as Marcus. Convenient for play dates, I suppose." Tom kept his voice steady. "They're friends, real friends. They help each other with homework, share books, build things together. And you're teaching Marcus about cars? I'm teaching him that working with your hands isn't something to be ashamed of. That understanding how things work makes you more complete, whether you're running a business or changing oil. But surely you understand that Marcus has responsibilities, a legacy to uphold." "I understand he's 8, Tom said firmly. "His only responsibility right now is to be a kid, to learn, to play, to figure out who he is without someone cramming him into a predetermined box, like his father is trying to do." "Objection!" Now Richard's lawyers were on their feet. "Withdrawn." The lawyer smiled coldly. "Tell me, Mr. Henderson, how does it feel to go from bankruptcy to dating a billionaire?" Tom felt heat rise in his face. "I never filed for bankruptcy, but you considered it during your wife's illness." "Yes. And now? Your financial situation has improved considerably since meeting Ms. Sterling?" "I work for a fair wage. A wage that's triple what you made at your previous employment?" Tom met Richard's smug gaze across the courtroom. "I'm paid what I'm worth, something Mr. Sterling might not understand since he inherited his success instead of earning it." Gasps from the gallery. The lawyer's face flushed. "Mr. Henderson, are you in love with Ms. Sterling?" The question hung in the air. Tom found Victoria's eyes, saw the fear there, the hope. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." "How convenient. And when did you realize this? Before or after seeing her bank statements?" "I realized it," Tom said slowly, "when I saw her teaching my daughter. That being smart wasn't something to hide. When she spent 3 hours helping Marcus with a school project about butterflies because she wanted to understand what fascinated him. When she worked beside me on her father's car, not caring about dirt or grease or appearances." He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I've been poor my whole life. I know what people think, that I'm with Victoria for money. But I've been poor and happy, and I've seen rich and miserable. Money doesn't fix what's broken inside. Connection. Does you consider yourself Marcus's family?" the lawyer pressed. "I consider myself someone who cares about his well-being, who wants to see him grow up curious and kind and confident. Whether that makes me family is up to him." The lawyer tried more angles, but Tom held steady. He talked about Marcus's brilliance, his curiosity, the way he lit up when understanding something new, about Emma and Marcus together, how they balanced each other, about Victoria's devotion to her son, imperfect but fierce. Finally, Judge Morrison called the children back, not to testify formally, but to submit letters they'd written. She read them silently while the courtroom held its breath. "I'll render my decision after a brief recess," she announced. In the hallway, Victoria pulled Tom aside. "You didn't have to say that about loving me." "Yes, I did." He touched her face gently. "We've got things to work through. The investigation, the trust issues, all of it. But Victoria, when that lawyer asked, I realized something. I'm already in this, all the way in. Even after, maybe because of, you're complicated and controlling and probably need therapy. Definitely need therapy. But you're also brilliant and devoted and brave enough to try again after being burned. And Emma loves you. Marcus needs you. He paused, finding the words. "I need you too." Victoria kissed him then, right there in the courthouse hallway, not caring who saw. It was desperate and sweet and tasted like hope despite everything. "All rise." They filed back in, hands linked, to hear their fate. Judge Morrison looked stern as she began. "Custody cases are never easy. They're about determining what's best for a child when adults can't agree." She looked at Richard. "Mr. Sterling, Your concerns about your ex-wife's judgment are noted. However, I find it curious that these concerns only arose when she began a relationship. Then to Victoria. Miss Sterling, your methods of vetting potential partners are unconventional. However, the result seems to be a stable, nurturing environment for Marcus. She held up the letters. But what matters most is what Marcus wants, and his letter is very clear. He wants to remain with his mother. He values his friendship with Emma. He's learning and growing and happy. Richard shifted in his seat. He also loves his father, the judge continued, and wants a relationship with him. A real relationship, not scheduled appointments between. Business trips. She set the letters down. I'm maintaining the current custody arrangement with one modification. Mr. Sterling, if you want more time with your son, earn it. Attend his school events, learn about his interests, be a father, not a checkbook. Your Honor, Richard's lawyer started. I'm not finished. Ms. Sterling, Mr. Henderson, what you're building appears to be healthy for both children, but go slowly. Consider family counseling to navigate blending your families. And Miss Sterling, perhaps individual therapy to address your trust issues wouldn't be amiss. Yes, Your Honor, Victoria whispered. This petition is denied. Court dismissed. The gavel came down like thunder. In the chaos that followed, Richard storming out, lawyers, shaking hands, reporters scribbling notes. Tom found himself in a group hug with Victoria and both children. Does this mean we're a family now? Marcus asked hopefully. We're something, Victoria said, tears streaming. We're definitely something. We're us, Emma decided. That's enough. Tom met Victoria's eyes over the children's heads. They had work to do, trust to rebuild, issues to resolve. But Emma was right, they were us. That was enough to start. The reporters descended like vultures the morning after the custody hearing. Tom woke to find 3 news vans outside his apartment building and his phone buzzing with calls from numbers he didn't recognize. The headlines were predictable. Billionaire, arrest keeps custody in love triangle drama, and from Greece to glamour, mechanic wins rich divorcee's heart. Dad, there's people with cameras outside, Emma reported from the window, still in her pajamas. They're scaring Mrs. Kim's cats. Tom's. Phone rang. Victoria. I'm so sorry, she said without preamble. My PR team is working on it, but Richard's people leaked everything. The proposal, the investigation, even some creative interpretations of your testimony. How creative. One blog is calling you a gold-digging grease monkey who seduced an unstable heiress. Another says, I'm having a midlife crisis, and you're my bit of rough. You're 34. Bit young for a midlife crisis. Tom, this is serious. Your apartment is surrounded. Yeah, Emma thinks it's exciting, like we're celebrities. Can you get to the garage, Murphy's? My security team can create a distraction. Victoria, Tom cut her off gently. We're not running from photographers. Emma has school. I have work. Life doesn't stop because some rich people want to gossip. Silence. On the line, then, how are you so calm about this? Because I've faced worse than gossip. Because Emma needs to see that we don't hide from hard things. Because if we're doing this, really doing this, then we do it in the open. Tom, I'll see you at work. Regular time. Tell Marcus that Emma's bringing the Lego set they started last week. He hung up before she could protest, then turned to his daughter. Ready for an adventure, kiddo? Walking Emma to school through the photographer gauntlet became a lesson in dignity. Tom kept his head high, hand firm on Emma's shoulder, answering her questions honestly. Why do they care about us, Dad? Because Victoria has a lot of money, and people are curious about her life. That's dumb. Yes, it is. Are you going to be in the newspaper? Probably. Cool. Wait, is that bad? Not if we didn't do anything wrong. And we didn't. At the school gates, other parents stared, some with curiosity, others with judgment. Mrs. Patterson from the PTA actually smirked, and Tom heard her whisper something about social climbing to her cluster of followers. But then Murphy appeared, flanked by several of Tom's regular customers from the garage. Heard you might need some backup, the old man said gruffly. Figured we'd walk Emma in. Make sure these vultures remember she's a kid." Tom's throat tightened as the small group of mechanics, store owners, and working folks formed a protective buffer around Emma. These people knew him, had known Sarah, had watched Emma grow up. They might not have billions, but they had something Richard Sterling couldn't buy: loyalty. "Thanks, Murphy. Don't get sappy on me, boy. Just returning the favor. Remember when you fixed my truck for free after my heart surgery? That was different." "No, it wasn't." Murphy glared at a photographer who got too close. "You stand by your people, Tom. About time your people stood by you." At the garage, more surprises waited. Hank Peterson had organized what could only be described as a protective detail of loyal customers, all needing various car services that required them to hang around all day, creating a buffer between Tom and any intrusive media. "Oil change," Hank announced loudly, though Tom had changed his oil 2 weeks ago. "Might need you to check everything else too. Take your time." By noon, the situation had escalated. Richard appeared on a financial news show, lamenting his ex-wife's deteriorating judgment and expressing concern for his son's exposure to inappropriate influences. Tom was under a Ford F-150 trying to focus on an exhaust repair when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Henderson, this is Patricia Welch from the morning show. We'd love to have you on to tell your side of the story." He hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Different number, same request. After the 5th call, he turned it off. "Tom," Victoria's voice uncertain. He rolled out from under the truck to find her standing in the garage entrance, looking nothing like a billionaire. Jeans, old Yale sweatshirt, hair in a messy ponytail, and eyes red from crying or lack of sleep or both. "Hey, I understand if you want to end this. The media attention, the scrutiny. It's not fair to Emma. I can have my lawyers draft a generous severance." "Stop!" Tom stood, wiping his hands. "Just stop." "But you think I care what some talking heads say about me? You think Emma and I are that fragile? I think you didn't sign up for this circus." "No," Tom agreed. "I signed up to fix cars. Fell in love along the way. The circus is just noise." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "I don't know how to fix this. I can't control it. Richard's playing victim. The media smells blood. My board is concerned about company image." "Then stop trying to control it." Tom pulled her into the garage, away from any long-range lenses. "You can't manage this like a business crisis. It's life. It's messy." "I hate messy." "I know." He touched her face gently. "But messy can be good. Look at us. Investigation, proposal, custody battle, media circus. We're a disaster on paper, but Emma's happy. Marcus is thriving. You smile more. I feel alive for the first time in 5 years." He pulled her closer. "That's worth some messy." Mrs. Chen arrived with Marcus and Emma, who'd been picked up from school by Victoria's security team when photographers got too aggressive. The children seemed unfazed, chattering about their day and diving straight into Legos. "Mom, are we famous now?" Marcus asked, not looking up from his building. "Temporarily," Victoria said carefully. "Good. Famous seems exhausting." He clicked another piece into place. "Timothy Chen Smith says his dad saw Tom on the news, said he looked resolute." "What's resolute?" Emma asked. "Determined, unwavering, adamant." "Marcus has been reading the thesaurus again," Victoria explained. "That evening they had dinner at Murphy's insistence. Can't let them think they've run you off." At the local diner, where Tom had eaten hundreds of meals over the years. The owner, Betty, made a point of seating them at the best table and glaring at anyone who stared too long. "House special for the celebrity mechanics," she announced loudly, depositing plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. "And chocolate milkshakes for the kids on the house." "Betty, you don't have to." "Hush, Tom Henderson. You fixed my son's car for free when he got laid off. You think I'm charging you for meatloaf?" The meal was perfect in its ordinariness. Emma and Marcus debated whether dragons could be real if they lived in volcanoes. Victoria slowly relaxed, the familiar chaos of family dinner replacing corporate crisis mode. Tom found himself watching her laugh at something Emma said, struck again by how right this felt despite everything. Mr. Henderson? Tom looked up to find a young woman with a press badge hovering nearby. The diner went quiet. I'm Amy Lou from the local Gazette. I know you've been avoiding interviews, but he's eating dinner with his family, Betty interrupted, hand on hip. You want a story? Here's one. Local man works hard, raises good kid, falls in love. End of story. Now order something or get out. But Amy persisted. Mr. Henderson, people are saying you're after Miss Sterling's money. Don't you want to respond? Tom set down his fork, aware of every eye in the diner. Emma pressed against his side, worried. Marcus watched with serious eyes. Victoria started to speak, but Tom squeezed her hand. You want a response? Here it is. He stood, addressing not just Amy, but the whole diner. I've been a mechanic for 15 years. Fixed cars for rich folks and poor folks alike. Never charged. More than fair, never did work that wasn't needed. Ask anyone here. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. I'm raising my daughter the same way my wife and I planned, with love, respect, and the knowledge that money doesn't define your worth. When I met Victoria, I didn't know she was rich. Just knew she cared about her father's old car. We connected. Over loss, over single parenthood, over wanting better for our kids. He looked directly at Amy. You want to know if I'm after her money? Lady, I've been poor my whole life and been just fine. What I'm after is a partner who sees me, who makes my daughter feel valued, who works beside me getting dirty and doesn't complain. The money is nice for my kid's future, sure. But if Victoria lost it all tomorrow, I'd still be here. Would you really? Amy pressed, scribbling notes. Tom looked at Victoria, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. Yeah, because she'd still be the woman who proposed to a stranger, over a car repair, who fought for her son in court, who's teaching Emma that being smart and successful isn't something to apologize for. And I'd still be here. Victoria stood too, taking his hand, because he'd still be the man who treats broken machines like they have souls. Who's teaching Marcus that there's honor in honest work? Who looked at me, with all my baggage and bad decisions, and decided I was worth the trouble? The diner erupted in applause. Amy Liu looked around, realizing she'd become the villain in this particular story. She retreated, but not before Betty called after her. You print that word for word, young lady, and you tell your readers that Millbrook takes care of its own. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes and backslaps. People Tom had known for years stopped by their table, sharing stories of repairs he'd done, kindnesses he'd forgotten. By the time they left, Emma was glowing with pride, and even Marcus had lost his worried look. Outside, the news vans had multiplied, but so had the crowd of locals. Murphy had apparently spent the afternoon rallying what he called the real people, folks who knew Tom, who'd been helped by him, who were tired of seeing a good man dragged through the mud. We got you to your car, Hank Peterson announced. These vultures want a show. Let's give them one about community. What followed was surreal. A parade of working people escorting them through the media gauntlet, sharing their own stories as they walked. Tom Henderson fixed my mother's car. For free when she was on Social Security, one woman told a reporter. Taught my boy about engines every Saturday for 2 years, no charge, added another. Man works Christmas Eve, so folks traveling can get emergency repairs, Murphy boomed. You want character references? We got hundreds. By the time they reached Victoria's car, the narrative was shifting. Social media filled with testimonials from Millbrook residents. Team Tom started trending, with people sharing stories of kindness from mechanics and blue-collar workers who'd been dismissed or looked down on. In the car, both children fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the day's drama. Tom drove while Victoria navigated, her hand resting on his knee. That was incredible, she said softly. What you said in the diner meant every word. I know, that's what makes it incredible. She paused. My board called while you were under the Ford. 3 members want me to step back from public appearances until this blows over. What did you tell them? That I've spent too many years stepping back, hiding, playing it safe. Her hand tightened on his knee. I told them if they're embarrassed by my relationship with an honest, hard-working man who's raising an amazing daughter, then they're welcome to sell their shares. Victoria. My company, Tom. My life. My choice. She smiled in the darkness. Besides, our stock is up 3%. Apparently the market likes a CEO who's human enough to fall in love badly and brave enough to fight for it. They reached the estate to find Marcus's science teacher, of all people, standing by the gate with a homemade sign. Mr. Henderson taught my son about cars and confidence. Team Tom. Mrs. Rodriguez? Victoria rolled down the window. Just wanted you both to know the school stands behind you. Marcus is a wonderful boy, and any fool can see why. He's got 4 parents who love him if you count Mrs. Chen. The teacher smiled. Don't let the rich bullies win. We regular folks need stories like yours. Inside, after the children were in bed, Tom and Victoria sat on the garage floor, backs against the restored Shelby, sharing a bottle of wine Betty had pressed on them. I'm sorry, Victoria said eventually, for the investigation, for proposing like a crazy person, for dragging you into my complicated life. I'm not. Tom took her hand, traced the grease stain on her palm from helping with the Ford earlier. Yeah, you went about things backwards, and we've got trust stuff to work through. But Victoria, look what we're building. A media circus. A family. A real one. Messy and complicated and public. He turned to face her. Those people today, Murphy, Betty, Mrs. Rodriguez, they showed up because they see it too. Something real in all this staged nonsense. Victoria leaned into him. Richard called. He's withdrawing the custody modification. His lawyers advised that fighting local hero Tom Henderson was bad optics. So we won. We survived round 1. She sighed. He'll be back. He always comes back when I'm happy. Then we'll handle it. Together, Victoria agreed. I like the sound of that. Tom's phone, turned back on, showed dozens of messages. Interview requests, support from strangers, and one that made him smile. A text from Emma's teacher saying the class wanted to do a field trip to the garage to learn about cars and community. You know what the funny thing is? Tom said, showing Victoria the message. Richard tried to use my job against us. Instead, he reminded everyone that mechanics, teachers, nurses, we're the ones who keep the world running, while CEOs and hedge fund managers do what exactly? Victoria's self-deprecation was soft but real. Hey, you run a company that employs thousands. That's keeping the world running too. Tom kissed her temple. Just differently. I love you, Victoria said suddenly. I know I've done everything wrong, but I love you. The way you stood up in that diner, how you are with the kids, your terrible jokes about carburetors, they're not terrible. They're classic. They're terrible. She turned in his arms. But I love them. I love that you make Marcus feel normal. I love that Emma calls me when she needs help with math. I love that we're building something I never thought I'd have. What's that? A home. Not a house. I've had plenty of those. A home where people track grease on the carpets and argue about TV shows and leave Legos everywhere, and it's perfect because it's ours. Tom kissed her then, deep and sure, tasting wine and promises and the future they were fighting for. When they broke apart, both breathless, he said what he'd been thinking all day. Marry me, Victoria blinked. What? You proposed first, but I'm proposing better. Not because of investigations or tests or whatever, because I want Emma to have you as a stepmother, because I want Marcus as my son, because you make me want to be more than just a good mechanic and decent dad. He grinned. Because someone needs to teach you that oil changes are every 3,000 miles, not whenever the car starts making that noise. Tom, also because I love you. Complicated, controlling, brilliant you. And if we're going to face down ex-husbands and reporters and whatever else, I want to do it as your husband. So, marry me? Victoria laughed, cried, and kissed him all at once. Yes. Of course, yes. Though technically you already said yes to me, so we'll call it even. They stayed in the garage until late, planning a future that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. A small wedding. Small but perfect, Victoria insisted. Adoption papers for both kids. If they want, Tom added, a life built on something. Stronger than money or status, love, trust, and the ability to rebuild broken things together. Outside, the world spun on with its gossip and judgment and noise. But inside the garage, surrounded by restored dreams and works in progress, two people who'd found each other through loss and loneliness started building something new, something unbreakable, something worth fighting for, something that proved love could bloom in the most unexpected places, even between a billionaire's proposal and a mechanic's yes. The wedding was supposed to be small, Victoria had promised. Family, close friends, nothing that would attract media attention. But as Tom stood in Murphy's garage, transformed with white lights and flowers, courtesy of what seemed like half of Millbrook, he realized small meant different things to different people. "Stop fidgeting," Murphy commanded, adjusting Tom's tie for the 10th time. "You look fine." "There's 300 people out there, Murphy," she said. "Small." "This is small. You should see the list her fancy friends wanted." The old man stepped back, examining his work. "There, you almost look respectable." Tom glanced around the garage where he'd worked for nearly a decade. Betty and her team had worked miracles, the oil stains covered with rented carpet, tool benches, draped in white cloth, the restored cars polished to mirror shines and decorated with ribbons. The Shelby that had started it all sat front and center, hood ornament gleaming with the rings tied to it. "Still can't believe you're getting married in a garage," Hank Peterson said, poking his head in. "Though I guess it makes sense. You two did meet over a car." "Victoria's idea," Tom admitted. "She said churches were for first marriages full of hope, garages were for second chances built on something real." "Woman's got a point. Speaking of which, your daughter's looking for you." Emma burst in moments later, a vision in purple. Her choice, not traditional but perfect for her. "Dad! Dad! Miss Victoria looks so beautiful, and Marcus keeps trying to peek, and Mrs. Chen is crying and—" "Breathe, kiddo." Emma took a dramatic breath. "Also, Marcus's dad is here." Tom's stomach dropped. "Richard's here. He's being weird, like nice weird. He brought a present and everything." Emma frowned. "I don't trust it." Neither did Tom, but before he could investigate, the music started. His cue, the walk to the makeshift altar, felt both endless and instant. Faces blurred. Customers who'd become friends, Victoria's employees who'd driven up from the city, his sister from Oregon who'd used her vacation days to be here. The children from Emma's class were scattered throughout, their parents having embraced the fairy tale of the mechanic and the billionaire. Then Victoria appeared, and everything else vanished. She'd chosen simple. Of course she had. His practical Victoria. An elegant cream dress that moved like water, her mother's pearls, and a smile that outshone everything else. Marcus walked beside her in lieu of her father, so serious and proud. When they reached Tom, Marcus hugged him tight before taking his place next to Emma. "You sure about this?" Tom whispered, as Victoria took his hands. "Never been more sure of anything," she whispered back. "Except maybe that first proposal." The ceremony was perfect in its imperfection. Emma forgot her line during the ring exchange and ad-libbed beautifully. Marcus sneezed during the vows, setting off sympathetic giggles through the crowd. Mrs. Chen sobbed loudly enough that Betty passed her tissues from 3 rows back. When Judge Morrison, the same who'd presided over the custody hearing, pronounced the husband and wife, the garage erupted in cheers that probably violated several noise ordinances. "I love you, Mrs. Henderson," Tom said against Victoria's lips. "Sterling Henderson," she corrected, smiling. "Some traditions are worth updating." The reception that followed was controlled chaos. Victoria's business associates mingled awkwardly with Tom's regular customers, finding common ground in embarrassing stories about the bride and groom. The kids ran wild, sugar high on Betty's famous cake. Someone had set up speakers, and the oil change bay became an impromptu dance floor. Tom was watching Victoria dance with Murphy, the old man surprisingly graceful, when Richard appeared at his elbow. "Congratulations," Richard said, and shockingly it sounded sincere. "Thanks." Tom waited for the catch. "I owe you an apology." "Several, actually." Richard stared at his expensive shoes, out of place on the garage floor. "I've been reviewing things, my priorities, my behavior." "Custody scare cleared up then?" Richard winced. "I deserved that, yes, it's withdrawn, permanently." He paused. "My therapist says I was projecting, seeing you with Marcus. How easy it was, how he lights up when you teach him things. I realized I was angry at you for being the father I should have been." Tom studied the man who'd tried to destroy their happiness. "And now? Now I'm hoping we can find a way to co-parent that doesn't involve lawyers." Richard pulled out an envelope. "Wedding gift. It's the trust fund I set up for Marcus. I've added Emma as co-beneficiary. Equal amounts. They're siblings now." "Right?" Tom stared at the envelope. "Richard, that's necessary. If I'm going to share my son with you, really share, not just legal arrangements, then I share all of it. The good and the responsibility." He managed a weak smile. "Besides, watching Emma defend you in court made me realize Marcus needs someone like her in his corner. Fierce little thing. She gets that from her mother. And her father." Richard extended his hand. "I'll never be easy to deal with. I'm working on it, but I'm me. But I want to try. For Marcus." Tom shook his hand, feeling the ground shift beneath them. "For Marcus." Richard nodded and melted back into the crowd, stopping to speak briefly with Marcus, who hugged him, tentatively but genuinely. "That looked intense," Victoria said, appearing at Tom's side with champagne. "Do I need to call security? Your ex just added Emma to Marcus's trust fund." Victoria nearly dropped her glass. "He what?" And apologized. Sort of, in a Richard way. "Good. God, what's next, flying pigs?" "Mom! Tom!" Marcus ran up, dragging Emma. "Can we do our thing now?" The thing turned out to be a surprise the kids had planned. They stood together, Marcus unfolding a paper with careful precision. "We wrote a speech," Emma announced. "Marcus did most of the words because he's better at vocabulary. But the ideas were both of ours." Marcus cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved and assorted guests." "That's how the judge started," Emma stage whispered. "We are gathered here to celebrate not just a wedding, but a family." Marcus's voice grew stronger. 6 months ago, Emma and I were only children. We had single parents who loved us, but were sad sometimes when they thought we weren't looking. Then they met, Emma picked up, and it was weird at first because who proposes to someone they just met? But then we became friends, and our parents became friends, and suddenly we weren't only children anymore. We were siblings, Marcus continued. Not by blood, but by choice. And that's actually more special, because nobody had to love us. They chose to. Tom felt Victoria's hand slip into his, squeezing tight. "So we have an announcement," Emma said, bouncing slightly. "We've decided we don't want to be step-siblings. We want to be real siblings. So we're asking, can Tom adopt Marcus and can Miss Victoria, Mom Victoria, adopt me?" The garage went silent. Tom looked at Victoria, seeing his own shock mirrored in her face. "We already asked a lawyer," Marcus added helpfully. "Mr. Richard's friend, Mr. Daniels. He says it's complicated but possible if all the biological parents agree," which they do. Emma pulled out another paper. "We got it in writing and everything. See, Dad signed, and Mom Victoria signed, and Mr. Richard signed, and my mom can't sign, but I asked her picture, and she didn't say no, so..." Tom scooped. Both children into a hug, Victoria joining seconds later. Around them, the wedding guests erupted in fresh cheers and not a few tears. "Yes," Tom managed. "Of course, yes. Absolutely yes," Victoria added, crying openly now. "Good," Marcus said, voice muffled by the group hug. "Because we already had the papers drawn up. We just need to file them." You little schemers, Victoria laughed. We learned from the best, Emma said innocently. You did investigate Dad for 6 months before proposing. She has a point, Tom conceded. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of joy. Tom danced with Emma, then with Mrs. Chen, then with Betty, who whispered fierce congratulations and mild threats about taking care of Victoria. Victoria danced with Marcus, teaching him a formal waltz that dissolved into giggling chaos. The four of them danced together, making up the steps as they went. As the evening wound down, Tom found himself back at the Shelby with Victoria, watching their guests slowly depart. Emma and Marcus had crashed in the office, curled together on the old couch like puppies. "No honeymoon?" Victoria asked, leaning into him. "Thought we'd take the kids to Disney next month. That count? Perfect." She was quiet for a moment. "I can't believe they planned the adoption thing. Our kids are smarter than us." "Our kids," Victoria repeated wonderingly. "Tom, a year ago I was convinced I'd never trust anyone again. Never remarry, never give Marcus siblings, never be truly happy. What changed?" She looked at the Shelby, then at him. "I brought a broken car to the right mechanic. He fixed more than the engine." "Still fixing," Tom corrected. "We're all works in progress. Good thing we've got time." They stood together, watching Murphy direct the cleanup with military precision, Betty boxing up leftover cake for anyone who wanted it, the community that had embraced them celebrating into the night. "You know what this means?" Tom said eventually. "What?" "I'm going to need a bigger toolbox. 2 kids means twice the broken toys, bikes, and dreams to fix." Victoria laughed. 3 kids. 3? She placed his hand on her stomach, smiling at his stunned expression. "Surprise! I was going to wait until tonight, but surprise." Tom stared at her, then at her stomach, then back at her face. We're really due in about 7 months. Turns out proposing to strangers and fighting custody battles is stressful enough to make you forget birth control occasionally. "Victoria," Tom spun her around, both of them laughing, "the kids are going to flip. Emma will want a sister, Marcus will create spreadsheets for optimal child rearing, and we'll figure it out as we go, like everything else. Like everything else," Victoria agreed. As if summoned by parent radar, Emma and Marcus appeared, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Why are you being loud?" Emma complained. "We're celebrating," Tom said, pulling both kids into the circle. "The wedding's over," Marcus pointed. "Out logically, we're celebrating the future," Victoria corrected. "All of it. The whole messy, beautiful, complicated future." "Does the future include ice cream?" Emma asked hopefully. "So much ice cream," Tom promised. They piled into the Shelby, probably violating several safety regulations, but not caring. Tom drove slowly through Millbrook, his family packed in beside him, heading home to the estate that had become theirs. In the rearview mirror, Murphy's garage grew smaller but never disappeared, the place where broken things became whole, where a billionaire's proposal had changed everything. "Dad?" Emma said sleepily. "I'm glad Miss Victoria proposed to you." "Me too, kiddo, even if it was weird," Marcus added. "Especially because it was weird," Victoria said, reaching over to squeeze Tom's knee. "The best things usually are." Tom smiled, thinking of all the weird, wonderful things that had led them here. A broken Mustang, a desperate proposal, a custody battle, a community's support, 2 lonely kids becoming siblings, 2 broken adults becoming whole. "Yeah," he agreed, turning toward home. "The best things usually are." In the back seat, the kids fell asleep again, heads touching. In the front, Tom and Victoria rode in comfortable silence, hands linked over the gear shift. Behind them, Millbrook, settled into quiet, the garage lights finally dimming on a day when impossible became inevitable. Ahead, the road stretched on, full of promise and probably potholes. But Tom was a mechanic. He knew how to navigate rough roads, how to fix what broke along the way, how to keep moving forward even when the engine knocked. And now he wasn't traveling alone. They were a family, messy and blended and perfect in its imperfection. built not on investigations or proposals or trust funds, but on something stronger, choice. The choice to love after loss, the choice to trust after betrayal, the choice to build something beautiful from broken pieces. The Shelby purred contentedly as they drove on, carrying its precious cargo home. In the morning, there would be paperwork and adjustments and probably a few arguments over bathroom schedules. But tonight, there was just this. A mechanic and a CEO, two kids who chose to be siblings, and a baby on the way to complete their unlikely family. Sometimes the best things really did start with the worst proposals. Sometimes broken things, when fixed with love, became stronger than they'd ever been before. Sometimes, Tom thought as he pulled into their driveway, sometimes you just had to trust the process and see where the road led. 1 year later, Tom stood in front of the new sign, still not quite believing it was real. Henderson and Sterling Classic Restoration gleamed in the morning sun, professionally painted, but with character, just like everything else about their new venture. "Stop admiring it and help me with these boxes," Victoria called from the truck, her pregnant belly making lifting inadvisable. At 7 months along, she moved with the careful grace of someone carrying precious cargo. "You're supposed to be supervising, not lifting," Tom chided, taking the box from her hands. "I'm supervising myself lifting. It's very efficient." But she let him take the weight, rubbing her back with a small grimace. "Your son has been practicing kickboxing since dawn, my son. When he's dancing on your bladder, he's my son." "Exactly. When he's born brilliant and beautiful, he'll be mine again." They'd found out it was a boy last month. Marcus had immediately started a list of potential names, cross-referenced with their meanings and historical significance. Emma wanted to name him after a character from her favorite book series. They'd probably end up letting the kids decide. They were good at that. The new shop sat on the corner of Main and 3rd, a renovated dealership from the 1960s with soaring ceilings and more square footage than Tom knew what to do with. Half garage, half showroom, with a corner dedicated to teaching kids about cars. Emma and Marcus's idea, naturally. "Tom! Miss V!" Murphy's voice boomed across the space. "Where do you want the diagnostic equipment?" Murphy had officially retired, but somehow spent most days at the new shop anyway, consulting and telling anyone who'd listen about the time Tom fixed the Billionaire's Mustang that started it all. "Bay 3, Tom directed. "The one with the new lift. Fancy equipment for a fancy shop," Murphy grumbled good-naturedly. "Back in my day, we diagnosed cars by listening to them." "You still do that," Victoria pointed out, directing 2 delivery men with furniture for the customer waiting area. "I've seen you put your ear against an engine block like you're trying to hear its secrets. That's different. That's art. This computer nonsense is just cheating," Tom smiled, letting the familiar banter wash over him. A year of marriage hadn't dimmed the surreal quality of his life. If anything, it had enhanced it. Victoria had stepped back from day-to-day operations at her company, bringing in a trusted CEO while she focused on what she called more interesting challenges, like raising 3 kids and building a restoration business that was already booked solid for 6 months. "Dad, Mum!" Emma raced in, Marcus close behind, both still in school uniforms. "We won!" "Won what?" Tom caught Emma as she launched herself at him. "The science fair, our project on alternative fuel sources for classic cars." She bounced with excitement. "Marcus did the math, and I built the model, and we proved you could convert a vintage engine to run on biodiesel without compromising performance," Marcus finished, adjusting his glasses proudly. "The judges said it was innovative and practical." "That's amazing." Victoria hugged Marcus, then Emma. "We should celebrate. Ice cream. It's 3:30 on a Tuesday," Tom pointed out. So, let's get ice cream." They piled into the restored 67 Mustang, now officially the family car, much to everyone's amusement. Tom drove while Victoria navigated unnecessarily to the ice cream shop 3 blocks away. The kids chatted in the back about their next project idea, something involving solar panels and electric car conversion that made Tom's head spin. You realize they're going to out-engineer us both by the time they're in high school, Victoria murmured. Emma already knows more about combustion engines than most of my customers, Tom agreed. And Marcus has memorized every car manual in the shop. Nature versus nurture debate solved. It's both, and we're doomed. The ice cream shop was packed with the after-school crowd. Tom recognized most of the faces. Millbrook was still small, enough that everyone knew everyone. What had changed was how they looked at his family. No longer curiosity or judgment, just acceptance. The mechanic, the CEO, and their brilliant kids had become part of the town's fabric. Mr. Henderson, young voice called out. Tom turned to find Jake Morrison, the teenager he'd been teaching in his spare time. Is it true you're hiring apprentices for the new shop? Applications open next week, Tom confirmed. You applying? If you'll have me. The kid's face was eager, hopeful. I've been practicing what you taught me, even helped my mom fix her. Breaks last week. Supervised, I hope. My dad helped, but I did most of the work myself. Tom felt a familiar warmth, the same feeling he got watching Emma or Marcus grasp a new concept. Bring your application by personally. We'll talk. After ice cream, they returned to the shop to find Richard's Bentley parked outside. Tom tensed. Automatically, old habits dying hard, but Victoria just sighed. He's early, as always. Richard emerged from the car, looking more relaxed than Tom had ever seen him. Therapy and a new relationship with a pediatric surgeon had done wonders for his disposition. I know, Richard said, hands up in mock surrender. I'm an hour early, but traffic was light, and I thought Marcus might want extra time to pack. It was Richard's weekend with Marcus, an arrangement that had evolved from stiff custody exchanges to something approaching actual co-parenting. He even occasionally asked Tom's advice about connecting with his son, which still felt surreal. It's fine, Marcus said, hugging his mother carefully around her belly. I already packed. I included the science fair trophy to show you. I saw the announcement on the school website. Congratulations. Richard's pride was genuine. Both of you. That was real teamwork. Emma beamed. She'd gone from distrusting Richard to tolerating him to actually liking him, especially after he'd started treating her like Marcus's true sibling rather than an inconvenient addition. Can Emma come this weekend? Marcus asked. We want to work on our solar panel design. Richard glanced at Tom and Victoria. If her parents are comfortable with it. Please, Dad. Emma turned her puppy eyes on Tom. We'll be good, and Mr. Richard has that huge workspace in his garage now. Tom exchanged looks with Victoria. A year ago, sending Emma with Richard would have been unthinkable. Now, if you're sure it's not an imposition, Tom said. Not at all. Dr. Kim enjoys their company, says they're better dinner conversationalists than most adults. Richard's smile turned wry. She's not wrong. Last week they explained cryptocurrency to me, and I finally understood it. After the kids left with Richard, Tom and Victoria returned to setting up the shop. Mrs. Chen arrived with dinner. She'd insisted on catering their first week to ensure proper nutrition during this stressful time. Her version of simple takeout. And could feed an army. You two work too hard, she fussed, arranging enough food for 20 people on the break room table. Especially you. She pointed at Victoria's belly. That baby needs rest. The baby needs his parents' business to succeed so he can afford college, Victoria countered, but she sat obediently and accepted a plate. They ate together. Tom, Victoria, Murphy, Mrs. Chen, and the handful of employees they'd already hired. Conversation flowed easily, ranging from shop logistics to town gossip to heated debates about the best motor oil brands. Never thought I'd see the day, Murphy said suddenly, looking around the table. Tom Henderson, with his own shop, married. To a CEO, raising 3 kids, and teaching other people's young'uns too. Life's funny, Tom agreed, catching Victoria's eye. Funny's one word for it, Murphy chuckled. Year and a half ago, you were just another mechanic living paycheck to paycheck. Now look at you. Still a mechanic, Tom pointed out, just with better equipment and more paperwork. And a partner who actually understands spreadsheets, Victoria added. Do you know he was doing his books by hand, on paper, like some kind of caveman? Computers are for diagnostics, not math, Tom defended, starting their familiar argument. Everything is math, Marcus would have said if he were here. Tom could hear his voice clearly, probably explaining some complex algorithm he'd learned from YouTube. After dinner, Tom and Victoria sat in the empty shop, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. The sun set through the western windows, painting everything golden. Scared? Victoria asked, taking his hand. Terrified? Tom admitted. What if we fail? What if the shop doesn't work? What if we succeed? She interrupted. What if we build something amazing? What if Emma and Marcus take over someday and make it even better? What if this baby, she placed their joined hands on her belly, grows up learning that anything is possible if you're willing to work for it? The baby kicked right on cue. See, he agrees with me. He just wants more ice cream. That too. He's definitely your son. Victoria leaned into him. Tom, we've faced custody battles and media circuses and my trust issues and merging two very different families. Opening a shop should be easy compared to that. When you put it like that. Besides, she continued, we have something most new businesses don't. Significant capital investment. Well, yes, but I meant community support. She gestured toward the window where they could see Betty's diner and the hardware store and all the small businesses that had welcomed them. These people showed up for us when Richard tried to tear us apart. They'll show up for this too. She was right. The next morning, when they officially opened, a line of customers stretched around the block, not because they all needed immediate car repair, but because Millbrook supported its own. Betty brought coffee and donuts. The mayor stopped by for a photo op that turned into him scheduling his classic Corvette for restoration. By noon, they'd booked appointments through the summer. I can't keep up with this, Tom laughed, phone pressed to his ear as another customer called. We're going to need more mechanics. Already on it, Victoria said, typing rapidly on her laptop. I've got 3 interviews scheduled for tomorrow and 2 more Thursday. They worked in comfortable synchronization, Tom handling the technical aspects while Victoria managed the business side. Emma and Marcus's after-school car education program already had 12 kids signed up. Even Richard had sent a congratulatory flower arrangement, tasteful and understated. He was learning. That night, exhausted but exhilarated, they sat on their front porch watching fireflies dance in the garden. Emma and Marcus were home from Richard's, full of stories about their weekend and plans for world domination via sustainable automotive technology. We should teach a workshop, Marcus suggested seriously, for other kids interested in engineering. Can we, Dad? Emma added. We could use the shop classroom on Saturdays. We'll see, Tom said, which both kids correctly interpreted as yes. After the children went to bed, Tom and Victoria remained on the porch, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her belly, feeling their son move. Thank you, Victoria said quietly. For what? For saying yes, when I proposed, when I asked you to trust me despite the investigation, when the media came after us, when Richard tried to break us. She lifted her head to look at him, for seeing past all my walls and broken pieces to something worth saving. You did the same for me, Tom reminded her. I was just existing, going. Through the motions, you woke me up. We woke each other up. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of their neighborhood. 1.5 years ago, Tom could never have imagined this. Sitting on the porch of a house that felt like home, Victoria beside him, their children safe upstairs, a baby on the way, and a business that combined both their dreams. You know what I was thinking about today? Victoria asked, during the grand opening. What? That first morning, when I asked you to marry me. She laughed softly. Your face was priceless, pure shock mixed with, is this woman insane? You were a little insane, Tom teased. Proposing to someone you'd watched through surveillance. Cameras, says the man who married me anyway. Best insane decision I ever made. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and smiled. Murphy. He says the news crew from Channel 6 wants to do a follow-up story. Local love story builds new business. Tell him no. Already did. We've had enough media attention for one lifetime. She paused. Although it would be nice publicity for the shop. Victoria Sterling Henderson, don't you dare. Fine, fine. We'll succeed on merit, not melodrama. She stood, stretching. Come on, let's go to bed. Tomorrow's another big day. Every day's a big day with you. Flatterer. Inside, Tom checked on the kids one more time. Emma had fallen asleep with a car manual open on her chest. Marcus had his tablet propped up, displaying what looked like patent applications for hybrid engines, though his eyes were closed. Tom removed both, tucked them in properly, and marveled again at how lucky he was. In their bedroom, Victoria was already in bed, reading quarterly reports, because old habits died hard. Put the work away, Tom said, sliding in beside her. The company will survive one night without your oversight. Just checking the automotive division performance, she protested, but set the tablet aside. We might have some interesting partnership opportunities for the shop. Tomorrow, Tom said firmly, pulling her close. Tonight, just us. Victoria relaxed against him, her hand finding his. Just us, she agreed. And this little kickboxer who apparently never sleeps. He's practicing for his debut, wants to make an entrance. Of course he does. He's a Henderson Sterling. We don't do anything quietly. Tom thought about that as Victoria's breathing evened out towards sleep. She was right. Nothing about their story had been quiet. From that first proposal to the custody battle, to the media circus, to today's grand opening, they'd lived out loud, in full view of their community. But here, in the darkness of their bedroom, with Victoria warm against his side, and their children. Safe down the hall, Tom found a different kind of peace. Not the numb quiet of grief he'd lived in for years after Sarah, but the full quiet of contentment, of being exactly where he belonged. His phone lit up with a notification, another appointment request for the shop. Tomorrow's problem. Tonight, he had everything he needed. Hey, Victoria murmured, apparently not quite asleep. I love you, love. You too, Tom replied, even if you are a crazy billionaire who proposes to strangers. Former billionaire, she corrected drowsily. I invested most of it in this ungrateful mechanics business. Your best investment yet. Definitely my best. Investment. The baby kicked again, reminding them both that their biggest adventure was still ahead. In a few months, they'd be outnumbered by kids. The shop would be in full swing. Emma and Marcus would be teaching other children about sustainable technology while probably inventing something that would change the world. Richard would continue his journey toward being a better father. Murphy would still be retired while working every day. Mrs. Chen would fuss over all of them. Betty would keep them fed. The town would watch their unconventional family with fond exasperation. And somewhere in all that beautiful chaos, Tom would still find moments like this. Quiet moments with Victoria, where they could marvel at the life they'd built from broken pieces and impossible proposals. What are you thinking about? Victoria asked, sensing his wakefulness. Everything, Tom admitted. How it all started, where we are now, where we're going. And I think Sarah would be proud. Of Emma, of the choices I've made, of us. He rarely mentioned his late wife anymore, but she was always there in the foundation of who he was. She told me to keep living, not just existing. Think I finally figured out what she meant. She raised a good man, Victoria said softly. I wish I could have thanked her. She would have liked you, would have laughed at your proposal, though. Everyone laughs at my proposal, because it was ridiculous. Ridiculously perfect, Victoria corrected. Got me you, didn't it? Got us each other, Tom amended. And Emma and Marcus, and this one. He patted her belly gently. And the shop, and Murphy's endless commentary, and okay, I get it. My impulsive proposal led to good things, Victoria yawned. Now go to sleep before I propose something else. Like what? I don't know. Maybe we should buy the building next door and expand the shop, or start a racing team with the kids, or adopt more children, or Sleep, Tom said firmly. Propose. Oh, things tomorrow. Spoil sport, but she settled down, and within minutes her breathing deepened into true sleep. Tom lay awake a bit longer, listening to the sounds of their home, the old house settling, a car passing outside, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Normal sounds of a normal life that was anything but normal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, customers to serve, employees to train, children to raise, a baby to prepare for. The shop would grow or struggle, the kids would excel or rebel. Life would continue its messy, unpredictable path. But tonight, Tom Henderson, mechanic, husband, father, and unlikely romantic hero, was exactly where he belonged. In a bed he shared with a woman who'd seen his worth when he'd forgotten it. Himself, in a house full of love and laughter and endless possibility. In a life that proved sometimes the best things really did start with the worst proposals. "Will you marry me?" she'd asked that morning in the garage, desperate and determined and absolutely serious. "Yes," he'd eventually answered, and built a life that exceeded both their wildest dreams. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, pattering gently on the roof. Tom smiled, remembering another rainy night when he'd worked on a broken Mustang and unknowingly fixed his broken future. Life was funny that way. You never knew which moments would change everything. But some moments, like a billionaire proposing to a mechanic over a car repair, announced themselves with fanfare. And some love stories like theirs were worth every moment of chaos that followed. Tom finally drifted off to sleep, Victoria in his arms, and their future spread before them like an open road. Whatever came next, they'd handle it together, with grease under their fingernails and love in their hearts. After all, they were Henderson Sterlings now. They could fix anything.